Hey friends, Carl here with another Calm Survival. And again, we're talking about mentality. Now, when we're talking about the future, the main way our culture looks towards the future is through fiction. I don't want to presume that anybody else has taken more or less media criticism courses or thought than I have, because I've taken very little, but I know that some people haven't heard certain terms. When it comes to futurism, which is a broad genre category of writing about anything in the future, usually is sci-fi, but isn't always. You have two main lenses that things are viewed through: dystopia and utopia. You've probably heard those terms before. They're not uncommon. But basically, dystopia, the worst of the worlds. Judge Dredd, Mad Max. And then you have the utopia. And very often, we have most of our media right now, and for the last 20, probably 30 years, a lot of futurism is very dystopian. There's very few truly utopian stories. And one of the reasons why utopian stories are so rare is that they are very difficult to keep utopian and say anything interesting. Because the main reason for these different genres, these different ways of looking at the world, is to turn up the contrast on what we live in now until the little key details are all that we can see. So in a dystopia, you always have that one shining example of humanity, despite everything that Mad Max, the unnamed police officer who, becomes something else, despite everything he goes through, he still acts in a way that is more human, in a way that we wish we would act in some of those difficult circumstances. He doesn't take the easy way out. Judge Dredd, the whole concept of all of humanity living in giant monolithic city structures, and there's only one good cop. That frames the idea that as bad as things can be, there's always going to be something to find hope in. And in a good utopia, a good utopian story, there's always that one thing that's not right. It's why utopian stories are often the frame of the start of many horror films. Things seem perfect on the outside, but there's something dark hidden underneath. It's important for us to remember that reality doesn't have that much contrast. The choices that we will make in our lives, whether or not they're normal day-to-day ones, or choices we make after the power goes out, are still going to be slight shades of gray. And some of the hardest ones are going to be some of the most subtle. But if we look at those dystopian heroes, we look at those who rise above, well, that's what humans do. If you want dystopian stories, the Siege of Leningrad, there's so many little moments that are remembered through history of people doing the thing for their fellow people, even as things got as bad as they got. So instead of looking at the horrible things that happen that we know about, because we know bad things will happen, Make sure that you're there so that someone remembers the good thing that happened. Make sure that we remember that as humans, the more selfless we are, the more we give, and the stronger our communities become, the more our communities stand on their own. Communities don't fall on their own. Communities are always pushed. And yes, there are bad actors that want to push over communities, but they are by far the minority. And the majority of good people sometimes need to just be reminded that they are good people. So part of our planning, part of our what do we do in the future, it's making sure the people around us remember that they are good people. Somebody can use a phrase like mutual aid network. You know, sounds good. Collection of friends, community. Doesn't matter what it looks like. The people that you will call when things are tough and the people who will call you when they need help. That goes a long way towards what we need. Because I can tell you this, as much as fiction loves a lone wolf survivor, reality doesn't. Humanity didn't get this far by having one of us. Humanity got this far by, no matter how few were left, making sure that there was going to be someone to make it. And many someones. So let's keep that in mind. Let's make sure that we're not planning ourselves down that lone wolf track. Because ultimately, that story doesn't end in happiness. Let's try to take the thing that we know is hardly possible, a true utopia, and let's remember that there'll always be some little tarnished edges. But let's make sure that we don't have a big, creeping evil hanging around underneath it. Because we can all handle some dents and scratches and tarnish if we know that we're moving towards a better collective, which I think is very possible. And hopefully we'll explore that more as this project continues on. Thanks for joining me. I've been Carl. This is Calm Survival. We'll see you next time.